Welcome back to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for The Green Knight. What's up, geeks? My name's Justin, and today we'll be giving you our first reaction to A24's latest film, The Green Knight, which hits theaters today, July 30th. And joining me for this roundtable discussion, we have Sir Nathaniel Stephen Douglas Shelton, first of his name. How are you, sir?
My lord, I am doth bequest don thine excellency.
I don't.
That make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. Kind of. There's just a bunch of like really literary words there. I don't even know if I introduced you right. I don't know if you're the first of your name or any of that.
I think I am. I don't think there's been a Nathaniel in my family ever before.
There you go. First of his name. Perfect. Okay,
Freaking
I got it
killed
right.
it, dude.
I got it right. Perfect.
Freaking killed it.
So as I was mentioning, we are going to be talking about The Green Knight, spoiler-free.
Yes.
Of course. But before we get to that, why don't we let our listeners know what this movie is about? The Green Knight, an epic fantasy adventure based on the timeless Arthurian legend, The Green Knight, tells the story of Sir Gawain, King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew, who embarks on a daring quest to confront the eponymous Green Knight, a gigantic emerald-skinned stranger and tester of men. Gawain contends with ghosts, giants, thieves, and schemers in what becomes a deeper journey to define his character and prove his worth in the eyes of his family and kingdom by facing the ultimate challenger. From the visionary filmmaker David Lowery comes a fresh and bold spin on a classic tale from the Knights of the Round Table. The film stars Dev Patel, Alicia Vikander, Joel Egerton, Sean Harris, Kate Dickie, and of course, Ralph Ineson as the Green Knight. And as mentioned before, this film is written and directed by David Lowery. Okay, let's start, like we start most of our spoiler-free reviews, with our hype level going in. Nate, take it away.
Dude, I was really hyped. I mean, during the initial lockdown for COVID-19, what was that, like a year, 2 years ago? I don't know. There was a poster for the movie theater in the mall where I worked. Big, giant, massive poster on the wall. Just says, coming soon. The Green Knight coming soon. And I was like, you're lying to me.
Yeah.
But I can't wait. I getting to see the first and then the second trailer, and we talked about them in our trailer time. Mm-hmm. I was extremely hyped for this movie. And I do think that the way that, I mean, we'll get to it. The way that I ultimately feel about this movie, unfortunately, it might have to do with some of that hype. Not necessarily meeting that expectation for me, but I do think, going into the movie, I was intrigued. I knew it was going to be weird. I knew it was going to be A24. But I was hoping for something that I didn't get, and obviously we'll get into that.
Okay. I was definitely hyped on seeing this after we saw the first trailer, which I think we talked about in our trailer time, as you mentioned, and the visuals that were in it. I was like, This is weird. This is an odd sense of like fantasy, horror, sci-fi. Just, it had everything blended, and then it just knew aesthetically what it wanted to be, and it showcased it in those trailers so well. Obviously, getting hit with the pandemic and this movie being delayed, this was one of the movies that gradually the hype was just being drawn out, and I'm just like, when are we going to see this movie? I thought they were going to release it just on digitally, yeah, but they actually held out, I guess, a year or maybe longer. I'm not sure when the initial release date was supposed to be for last year, but regardless, the hype was up there for me. I was stoked to go in there, but then I was getting a little nervous, just a little bit, because before we were going in, there was people that were already
you looked at me. You were like, I don't know, man. Something in the bottom of my tummy right now.
Well, because also just there's been a lot of comments about the pacing, right? And that, and we'll people were kind of talking about it in a spoiler-free capacity, but just, basically giving fair warning that this is a bit of a slower burn. And that, to me, I was like, oh, like, is it really going to show, right? Are they going to rely too much on those visuals to really flush things out? So let's start first with what we liked about the movie. And I'll let you go first, Nate, please.
Well, I just wanted to shout out to Elevation Pictures here in Canada. It's A24 in the States. Elevation Pictures is the studio that released here. And I got to say, for holding out for holding out and putting this movie in a theater, because I think the biggest takeaway, maybe even more than the visuals for me in this movie, was the audio. I do think that this is a movie that you need to see in a theater. I do feel like there's a moment where freaking Ralph Ineson or whatever is however you pronounce his last name. He is the Green Knight, and there's a moment where he's talking, and it's a really important moment. I think they show it in the trailer a little bit, but I felt his voice in my chest. And that was like, I as soon as we hit that moment, which took a little bit too long to get to, as soon as we hit that moment, I was like, okay, all right. And the movie does this weird thing where you're drawn in and you can't stop looking at the screen. You know what I mean? You can't stop. It's very engrossing. And so I love that about the movie, you know, from a sense of like, I don't know, like I was entranced by it in certain instances. And I think a lot of that also has to do with obviously the visuals. And I also wanted to shout out the cinematography. There's in the opening moments of this movie where the camera goes through the castle doors and it pans upwards and it commits to these angles and these pans, these slow pans throughout the movie that just sort of make you. It's mesmerizing. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think they created a mesmerizing experience visually, and the layering in of that audio and the music and the score, the sounds, how it was very jarring, how it pulled you in. But let me start first with the performances, because there was a lot that I liked. Dev Patel, I really enjoyed. I think he really showed nuances to his character that as a viewer you could kind of relate to, in that sort of seeking something more, having a desire to want to see for more for yourself. I think that was really conveyed well. Surprise performance from Joel Edgerton. He's great in everything he does, but like he was fantastic in this, and I just appreciated the level of commitment that the actors gave to their roles, especially Sean Harris and Kate Dickie. The look of them, the sort of the aesthetic of them, and that sort of like they look like they're fading and they're gaunt and like they're very thin, and it's just, they're fleeting, right? And they played to that tone so well in this movie. It was very surprising. To also, just to round out the cast, like you called out, Ralph Ineson, who plays the Green Knight, such presence in his voice, like you pointed out. His voice elevated this character and just really like hit you at your core. And yeah, absolutely, in the theater, hearing that deep tone,
it's so good.
You just feel it inside of you. It's very unearthly. It's in you. So I don't know. It was fantastic. So performance wise, that's what I say I liked about the performances. In terms of the visuals, absolutely stunning. This thing is so beautiful to look at. And I loved like so much of like from things like you were describing, camera movements, dollies, pans, sort of tracking shots, like this committing to these sort of one take oneers in certain cases with just leaving the camera. It was just so well done. Like it helped tell the story just as much as the acting on the screen did.
Well, I think that's exactly it, Justin. It's that when the visuals can provide more to this very, I'm going to say, thin narrative.
It is.
Light narrative.
Yeah. When
the visuals layers in the shots and the colors in this movie to help tell the story and help propel it forward.
It's immersive.
Beyond just the words. And again, we go back to that word immersive. Entrancing. You feel like you're just as much going down this rabbit hole, if you will, with Gawain, with Dev Patel's character, as you sort of go deeper and deeper, and you sort of just, again, you feel like I didn't want to leave, but there were also a lot of moments where I was just like, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, though, the one thing that I really loved about this movie is its sort of surreal, experimental approach to the fantasy genre. This felt very different. It felt bold. It felt fresh. And I like that they didn't do so much hand-holding for the audience. And they didn't necessarily give super clear explanations to everything. But with that being said, I think that this is a perfect time to transition to the things we didn't like. I'm sure that those were things that you didn't like about the movie. Am I right, Nate?
Well, I mean, listen, no. Like, don't get me wrong. The whole aspect of somebody of a storyteller holding your hand throughout the story, like exposition dumps, I don't like any of that. And we've talked about this. We've talked about how Game of Thrones has, in most of their episodes, and some of them not so much, but in most of their episodes, being able to do that thing where you might have to go back to a scene. You might have to go back to a moment to say, like, oh, hold on. Mm-hmm. What's going on here? And that's fine. I actually appreciate that because that gets me more excited to see the movie
invested
again.
Too.
Invested, right? Yeah. But I just have to say, A24 and their misleading trailers, dude. It's a thing. It's an actual thing that is happening where going into this movie, I completely thought that we were going to be getting an A24 movie, sure, that was going to be slightly more accessible for fans of the genre of fantasy, which we didn't get. We did not get that. This is an A24 film for A24 fans, and that's totally fine. I appreciate that. I actually think that it doesn't make the movie worse necessarily, but it does set up a lot of its. I think it sets up a lot of its audience, including myself, to sort of be misled into what it actually is. And so for me, I wanted more. I wanted more weird stuff. You know, I think of like
it was weird though, man.
No, but hold on. There was not enough because let's just put it this way. Every A24 movie that I can think of, I have vivid imagery stuck and printed into my brain of some of the craziest moments in those movies. I don't, even after just seeing this, I don't really have too much. There's some stuff we saw in the trailer from a visual standpoint it's gorgeous and it's really cool, but none of it got weird enough for me. And I was kind of expecting that from A24, and I was also expecting this to be a movie that we could bring someone like Kevin in, and I'm really glad we didn't, because I think he would have been bored to tears, unfortunately.
It's funny because in terms of didn't like, I don't know if there's much that I could really say at this point right now, just because we're literally fresh. Like, we just saw this movie and are sitting down recording, so I have to let it sit. But that being said, you know, the thing that you didn't like, I actually enjoyed. I like that they subverted the expectations of it being fantasy based and went a different direction with it. It is fantasy, but in a more surreal, ephemeral way, if that makes sense. It's something that feels more experienced rather than just being weird for the sake of weird. I will agree with you though that probably some of the most weird things that we saw did come out of the trailers as like those visual assets that they used to help sell the movie. So it didn't really get too much weirder beyond that. But I don't know, like I think that there's something to be said about the approach of really just trying to bring something fresh and new to the fantasy storytelling. Like I loved how they really did elevate the fantasy genre by just being more experimental and abstract with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying there. I'll put it this way. How can I break this down as easily as possible for general audiences? This is an Arthurian, medieval tale with, I thought there might be a little bit more action or a little bit more something. And you know what? That's on me 100%. That's not something they promised in the trailer.
Sure.
But I don't know, man. So I didn't expect them to go this direction.
Yeah,
with
they went too art house for you. They went too art house with this approach. That being said, I think that, maybe for general audience, I don't know if the slow burn pace of this narrative is actually for them. I think a lot of people might not like it, which is unfortunate, because they'll think that it's just slow and overly, like, again, for lack of better words, a little too pretentious in its approach. But I think that's just general audience. I think this does cater to a very specific audience that is going to look at this film and understand that the visuals are really attributing to the storytelling more so than expositional dialogue or dialogue in general. Like, it's about being in the moment and experiencing the moment and it was just so well crafted in that way. Based on the other typical movies that we talk about on this podcast, the Disney, the Marvel, the Warner Brothers, anything on Netflix, this sits kind of way outside of all of that, right? Like this is very much in the art house, not necessarily the typical general audience. So before we wrap this thing up and get to the end here, of course, let's find out if it did live All right, Nate. I feel like I already kind of know where you're going to go with this, but why don't you just, fill our audience in again?
It didn't live up to the hype for me. And again, I don't know if I can attribute that to my own thoughts from what the trailer presented or the amount of time that it took for me to get from those trailers to watching this movie. Again, I commend A24 and Elevation Pictures for putting this out into theaters and holding off to provide that experience in theaters, because there are parts of it that I said, they're visually intriguing. I'm entranced. I love the music, the cinematography. Some of the performances were fantastic, but there was not enough weirdness. And honestly, there was not enough character growth for Gawain. There just really wasn't. And I don't think that's a spoiler to say. I can't tell you after just seeing that movie what it is he grew from, what he learned. I don't know. And maybe that's me. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not watching enough art house films to understand that. But to me, this movie did not live up to the hype.
Interesting. Okay. I feel like it lived up to the hype for me. If not, it didn't exceed it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Apart obviously getting into any sort of spoilers about it, if anything, don't see the trailers. Don't watch anything. Mm-hmm. Just go see the movie.
Yes, I feel like that would actually help a lot.
Yes. I feel like, though, the visuals that I saw and the things that transpired, it is going to stick with me. There are parts to this movie that are definitely going to stick with me. And I think if you're a fan of Pan's Labyrinth or Shape of Water, those are probably better movies than this because they don't necessarily go so far into the art house. However, much like those movies, this film is extremely visual and extremely immersive. You'll want to prepare yourself for like a bit of a mental trip with this movie. It is 100% a fairy tale with adult elements. I feel like this delivered on what I wanted, and if anything, it surprised me with how abstract it kind of felt, or experimental it felt at times. So really well done.
Don't watch the trailer.
Yeah, don't watch it. Just go in cold, if anything, and
and come out warm.
Come out super warm. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. That is our spoiler-free review for The Green Knight. Thank you for tuning in wherever you listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and leave us a glowing review. We always appreciate the love. Also, we want to know, are you planning on checking out The Green Knight? Have you seen the movie? Do you think we're wrong? Do you think we're right? Let us know at our email address, wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. We'd also love it if you check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Also on Twitter at geekcentricyt. And we're always around on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Nate, and everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us for our spoiler-free review of The Green Knight. And as we say,
love ya.
Peace.